Hello and welcome, I am Kira Scribner, and today I'm going to be starting my July month with Jane Austen July. This is not Victorian at all, and I don't know why I'm trying to sound fancy, but I'm going to see Shakespeare tonight. I'm going to see King Lear tonight, and I'm super excited for this. This is a play that I did not like when I read it, so I'm hoping that when I do read it, I'll understand it. I think that they do a marvelous job of performing and giving all of these cool ways of understanding it and stuff, and I think that that will allow me to understand it. And yeah, I'm really hoping that it's going to be really marvelous. I feel kind of self-conscious about going to public dressed like this because this is my grandmother's hat, which looks fancy, and then you notice, is that hair? I don't understand why. I've had this hat for years and I never brought it, it was just at my parents', and then I found it in the chest there and I was like, I can do something with this. So I don't know if I should alter it so that it no longer looks like it has human hair on it, but then I don't want to mess with the integrity of it and stuff. So far I'm going out in public like this, and then I have this beautiful dress that I got thrifted a long time ago that I have been changing and altering. I need to do some sewing so that it has proper things, because other than that it has those straps, which I don't like as much. But I feel very sophisticated in it, and one day I will, thrift store my way into looking like a Victorian woman, but currently I now just have random assemblages. But I'm really excited for Jane Austen July. It is one of my favorite times of the year. I really love reading it. I'm so excited to start the Watsons. I might even get home at midnight tonight and start it because I'm so excited. And I have some other books I'm going to read and some retellings, and I'll probably watch some stuff. So I don't know if this will be one big vlog or several vlogs, but I will let you in and I will post it when I'm ready. Tell me where to get cool hats that don't have human hair on them. Because look, this rim is perfect. But then you go up and you're like, maybe not so perfect. So I don't know, 1950s style was weird. Is it the style? Anyone who knows 1950s, why did my grandmother have hair that matched her hair on top of her head? Hello to day 4 of Jane Austen July. I had a wonderful time at Stratford. It was a wonderful play. I definitely enjoyed the Gloucester plot a little more than the main plot. I find that I don't always like the singular old hero, kind of similar to Richard III, even though Richard III is not an old man. He was in his 31, 32 when he died, but we always portray him by an old man. But I really enjoyed the Gloucester point of views. The characters and actors who played them were one of my favorite cast members from last season, so that was really delightful. And the more we saw of Gloucester, the more that I loved it. So that was really delightful. And then I have read 4 books in July already. So I read Much Ado About Nada, which was just really lovely. I loved the retelling of it, and I really loved the characters. It was set in Toronto too, which just made me really happy. And I thought it was really clever. I will say that I stand by my thoughts that it might partly have been based on Much Ado About Nothing, because it's a weird title for a Persuasion retelling, and there is one element that I can't really spoil that definitely links to some element being based on Much Ado About Nothing. And then from them, I read a non-Jane Austen book, Carry On, Hana Khan. She has 3 books out so far, and only one of them isn't about Jane Austen, but I can't read Ayesha At Last yet because it is stuck in the library. However, I enjoyed this one, not as much as Much Ado About Nada, but I really enjoyed it as well. And then from there, I read Where the Rhythm Takes You, which I had a lot of fun with. Again, it wasn't quite on the same level. It is another Persuasion retelling, and I really enjoyed the characters. It's set in Tobago, which I think is really cool, and we have these characters who have a lot of history. I also appreciated that it never villainized other female characters. Persuasion has a lot of interesting characters in it that are sometimes devious, and in this case, we see a lot of positive female interactions, even through characters who have reason to dislike each other. And the ones that do have negative things resolve through there in a non-ugly kind of way, which I really appreciated. And then I read The Murder of Mr Wickham, which I have a lot of thoughts on. I think I need to sit on a while because the characterization of the Jane Austen characters really upset me. I think that especially Wentworth was so out of character talking about Persuasion and some of the other characters, but I do have fond thoughts about it and I want to continue on. I just didn't love it with the same degree that I was really anticipating, and I thought that part of it was really out of character for all of the characters, although it's a murder mystery, so you kind of have to make some of the characters shady in some ways, but I feel like it could have been done in more indirect ways, in the ways that like it makes them out of character and makes some of the characters that have been very much established to not be that way very much in that way. Although I really enjoyed seeing the characters. It also did this weird thing where it like staggered the beginning of the books, which makes sense in some cases. Like Pride and Prejudice originally took out 23 years earlier than the book, and we know that. But then they put Sense and Sensibility as taking place only 2 years earlier, with Marianne only married 5 months. And as someone who's always placed like Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice together, to have Marianne 24 years younger than Elizabeth is just very odd. She is younger than Darcy and Elizabeth's oldest child, and that's just really weird. I will probably talk more about these books when I have a little bit more time to think, but because I started the Watsons, I want to talk about it. I think I'm going to do another vlog kind of going through my thoughts and predictions and things. I know nothing about this. Is one of her unfinished books that only has 40 pages of it, so I'm really intrigued on this, but so far it is quite interesting. I'm really enjoying looking at these characters. So far, all I know is that there's these two sisters, there's other sisters, one of them connived another out of an engagement. It's all of these things. There's a man who's in love with all of these things. There's an old lover who's now married. It is kind of earlier, more scandalous Jane Austen, and I'm enjoying to see it, and I'm gonna have so much time predicting this book and then like researching it. It's gonna be really fun. So I'm in my friend's wedding, so I have to capture this look where I don't really look like myself. Jane Austen July is going wonderful. I'm almost done the Watsons, and I'm really enjoying it. It is so much fun, and I can't believe that I only have like 4 pages left. I wanted to finish it last night, but I didn't want to rush it, so yeah, I'm really excited. I have a little recipe cook saying eating at Jane Austen's table, so when I'm like, when there's moments of lulls or something like that, I've been looking at it and it's really great. I'm just feeling very Austen-y. Say hi. Post-wedding, I might not have ever been more tired or unable to move my body, but it was the most beautiful wedding like I've ever been to. I love my friend so much, and her husband is amazing, and it's just been really lovely to like celebrate with everyone and dance with everyone. But it was also a very large Italian wedding, and I learned like all of these fun Italian like dances and stuff, and all the grandparents and the parents just like grabbing my hands and like doing these wonderful dances was just so amazing. And like, oh, it was so great to have like a really big wedding. It did really kind of feel like we were in a fairy tale, and they had these beautiful stairs, and I was just in my floor-length dress like running up and down the stairs, and I was like, I feel like I could be in a movie, especially a fairy tale, just like running away on the stairs. So it felt very fun. It was super fun. So I am resting, drinking tea the day after. I slept, I think, 5 hours after church today, so that was fun. And I think I'm going to read that other Bennet sister now. I'm in the mood. I really want to finish the Watsons because I'm really enjoying it, but I sadly didn't finish it before the wedding, and I want to read it tomorrow when I'm still a little bit more awake because I'm still quite sore. It's a good lesson that trees are not often a good table. Oh, there you go. I'm going to use this wall. Got pretty videos, and I also managed to get dirt everywhere on this book by first dropping it and then dropping it in this dirt. Here I'm going to conclude my vlog for the first half of July. So I have read a few things since I last checked in. I have not yet finished this book. I have wanted to have a little more focus, and Canada has been weird. We had tornadoes, a lot of rainstorms and thunders and everything like that, and I get really bad migraines. So I've mostly just been really wiped out, and I know that you can really overhype something and not finish it because you're thinking about it too much. I feel like I might be dancing a little bit into this. Wow, it's been like a week since I read the majority of it. But maybe after I film this, I might like hunker down and finish it. I just think that I really want to not have the pressure on it. But I have picked up Pride and Prejudice. I wasn't sure necessarily that I was going to pick this up. I had a bunch of thoughts kind of wiring around on which of the main 6 novels I would read, or if any. I thought about Sensibility as it was the last one that I read. I read it last summer in print. This is actually the only novel other than Persuasion, I think, right now that I have not read any of it really in print, which is funny. I originally started in print, but my version is this one, and it is dreadful to read. Like, look at this print, and it's just all very squished together. And I just really struggled as a very dyslexic person to read this and to get very far. And I was starting to read it, I think in 2017, so quite a while ago. And then I did listen to it on audiobook, and then I listened to an audiobook last April again. I opened this up. This is my roommate's version. I was like, oh, it's so much nicer to read it. And now that I've read 4 out of her 6 novels in print, I have read The Other Bennet Sister, and this is a book that I fell in love with. I really, really love this book more than anything. Like, you know, when you feel full in your chest by reading something, that's how I felt. And I really loved Mary's conversation on like beauty, and we really meet Mary Bennet young, and we meet her looking approval for mother of her father, her not realizing that she's plain until, you know, you have this kind of thoughts about how much her mother praises her sisters and doesn't praise her, and then she overhears her mother talking to Mrs. Phillips and talks about how she's not ever going to be pretty, and it almost shows that she retreats into herself as a form of protection. She feels silly if she would ever like make a do about something. And I feel like that's a really relatable experience. And as she goes on and as she starts to have a little more people, you know, not degrade her and to give her a little bit of encouragement, we see how much she's able to encounter beauty. And I do think that beauty is so much more in confidence. This is a bookshelf that like I never get to show off, but is always here. This often also has some Austen books that I took out to film on. But yes, I wanted to cut in here briefly and talk about how I was also really intrigued on the way that she talked about Mary, because of the fact that it relates to a lot in the way that Anne Elliot deals with beauty, and how she's 27, Mary is only like 20 still, so she would still be traditionally in her first bloom. But we kind of also see this with Mary Ann in Sense and Sensibility. I won't spoil the aspects of these books. She goes through something very traumatic, and someone who's only 17, she's still, you know, in her prime, quote unquote, and all of those things, and then something tragic happens and she almost loses her first bloom. And we see this also in Anne, where, you know, she's a little bit older, but at the beginning of the novel we find out that she has refused Wentworth, and now 7 years have passed, and she went from a very beautiful woman to someone who has lost her fate, and everyone considers, you know, past this. And then throughout the novel, as she begins to kind of come back into herself, she gets her bloom again. And I love the idea of bloom in Jane Austen's novels and stuff like that, because it's not literally about what someone's face is like, because it's not saying that this person's face is nicer than the person's face. It's literally being like the liveliness or joy and like almost confidence and trust in someone is kind of the definition of where people get their beauty from. And I do really think that there's a captivatingness. And this is something that I heard someone point out recently that I forgot as well, that Henry Crawford is considered ugly. He is one of my favorite characters in Mansfield Park, and everyone else, where was the quote from? I'm really forgetting it, but they said something about how everyone is beautiful in that book except for Henry Crawford, and yet he is like the rapscallion that everyone thinks is like really hot. And like his kind of I'm gonna butcher this French, but like joviality, nope, I can't even do that, joviality is what kind of carries his beauty. And I do really think that that's true. I think that, you know, I think about that when I look at pictures of Marilyn Monroe or look at other things, and I'm like, I don't think that they're that pretty. Like, not that I think that like they're not attractive, but I'll just be like, out of all of the women to capture this, to be like the most beautiful women alive, I'm like, not that stunning. And then I have to remember that so much of that is also convention and ideas and all those things, but it's also often about the idea of like what someone is holding. You know, when you just see a still photo of someone, so often their beauty is not captured. And I love that aspect in The Other Bennet Sister. I think that being told that you are ugly is so much more powerful than anything. And it's something that is really evident in our culture. And, you know, we see it in the ways that we obsess about our looks, and we obsess about our weights, and we obsess about all of these things to really, really destructive ways that are so hard. And we have this preoccupation on beauty too, when we consider someone very beautiful, and we talk about it all the time in a way that just, it sickens me often. I'm a person who struggled with an eating disorder for a really long time and still does. I have gained back a healthy amount of weight, but the mind part of that is still really, really hard. So it's something that I can relate to in Mary's story, and the ways in which it really realistically shows how this cuts her personality. And I think that she develops really beautifully. It doesn't take any prisoners with representing, the other Bennets or the other characters nicely. We see some of the dark sides of Mr. Bennet giving approval to Elizabeth and not to the others. We get, the conversation obviously around Mrs. Bennet, who's more likely to be called problematic. We see even Elizabeth and Darcy and how Mary knows that they're welcoming her, but also she is very aware of the fact that they're more uncomfortable when she's not there. You have Jane and Bingley existing around Caroline, giving her insults and being too affable, being too nice to actually say anything and stand up. And I think that that's a really interesting thing. And the first little bit follows the early part of Pride and Prejudice in her childhood, and then it jumps to 2 years later. And I really enjoyed the ways in which she really encountered this character, and we see her grow. And it feels very much like a life story, not just trying to like hit the beats of a plot or all of those things. And I think it's so cleverly wound into the world of Pride and Prejudice, but also something really new. Meanwhile, I think I have DNF'd 2 other books, which makes me really sad because I was looking forward to them. And Longbourn is the first one. I don't think this is necessarily a bad book, but it isn't the book that I want. It isn't a book about Pride and Prejudice. And I knew that it wasn't necessarily going to be about like Darcy and Elizabeth or whatever, but I definitely thought that they were going to be more encountering with like, the Bennets and, having some of the conversations and stuff. But this is completely devoid this, and it came out in 2013, and you can kind of feel that vibe. Like, we have this stranger and she's like, oh, I've never seen a man before, and then like she's trying to get him and she's like, oh, he's dirty, but he's a coward because he won't talk to us and stuff like that. And it's just like, that's not the vibe that I'm really looking for. And then I tried The Clergyman's Wife by Molly Greeley. I have previously read The Heiress, which I really struggled with. I was so excited because it deals with Anne de Bourgh and the theory proposed in this book that Catherine de Bourgh gave Anne de Bourgh opium in order to calm her down because, she wants everything perfect and all of those things. And it's not something, you can understand why this would be a theory based on Anne's like sickliness. I think that it's a very clever book in some ways, but it was very boring for me and just didn't really entrance me. And I didn't like the writing. It was overly lyrical. And I love lyricalness, but I also need some like wit and some other things in it. And The Clergyman's Wife is about Charlotte. It's about Charlotte Lucas. And I was really intrigued to see her life as Collins and stuff. But yeah, I think I was hoping more to see a little more of her becoming his wife rather than jumping ahead again. I think I would be more encouraged to go on if I hadn't read a book by her already that I didn't like. And also if I hadn't just read The Other Bennet Sister, which was such a fabulous retelling. So yeah, this isn't necessarily a bad book. It also feels like it's going to deal with adultery and stuff, something that, especially in the context of this, just isn't something that I really want. The Other Bennet Sister really plays with the conversations on like class and beauty and all of these things that feel quite deep in a way that also feels like it's an Austen book. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't deviate in that way. Like the ways that the characters talk and the way the characters exist are very Austen-y, when also having a little more of that critique. And social critique is what I love so much. These books both have social critique. One of them is looking at servants. One of them is looking at being trapped in a marriage. They're just not doing it in ways that I find very appealing. And like, I know that this is personal taste and I don't DNF books a lot, but I think that I want to be, especially if they're about something that I like. I feel almost more protective over, I think, Austen and other characters that I really like. Like, I don't really want to sully my love of it by indulging in things that I don't like. And I have read, when I was talking about other Jane Austen books that I really loved, I forgot that I really love Pride as well by A.B. Savoy. I read this years ago and it's such a well done book. And I've also read, is it Written in Stars? Is that the book I read like 2 years ago? And it was a Darcy Elizabeth retelling that I really didn't like. I talked about earlier how I really liked Much Ado About Nada. This is another book, but this is the one that I own. And yeah, like, I really enjoy retellings. So they don't have to be utterly perfect, but like getting the vibe right or saying something about something is really important to me. And I know that is very crystal clear. But that is the end of my vlog. Let me know what you've been reading for Jane Austen July. One of the reasons why I'm reading Pride and Prejudice again to talk about that is there's something that's coming up. I hope that me and a friend are going to be talking about Jane Austen and some of the people in Jane Austen. And as this is the book that I have the most like nostalgia about and the least like concrete fans, I don't really know how to rate. So I really don't know how I'm gonna do that. So I really want to see Darcy on his own, just in print with nothing, no sparkles, nothing on him. So that is going to be fun and interesting, hopefully, and I'm really excited for the second half. I am going to still read this School of Scandal, dropping books. So I'm going to leave that out so I don't forget that. The other Bennet sister also talked a lot about Wordsworth, which made me think that I might pick up a little bit of his poems as well, because it made me very interested. And yeah, I'm going to finish the Watsons. I think I'm still probably going to try to read some more retellings and stuff. And oh, I have the cookbook, and I also have one that's called Cover to Cover that is looking at some of the things and talking about the history of Jane Austen, which I'm really loving. Like, it feels like just a more casual nonfiction about her, and that's really enjoyable. So yes, I will see you next time. Austen on. Until then.